comparative religion. Today is going to be exciting. We're going to speak of the oldest major religion in the world. But before you can even put that into context, you have to understand history. Those who are religious, history and religion go side by side. So for you to truly understand your religion, the first thing you got to do is understand the context which your religion was created in. And so for us to understand religion, we have to first understand the oldest religion. And this brings us to an ancient civilization. But I know I have a lot of scholars listening to this, so I want to first say this. The key word in what I said is the oldest major religion. So that means that there are older religions than this one. But the reason why we call it the oldest major religion, because many people on the planet follow it. If you have an older religion but only 20 people are following it, it can't be considered a major religion. So this religion has tons of people following. So the way this major religion works is this. Christianity is the #1 religion in the world as far as people following it. All right, I think estimates have it somewhere around 2.2 billion people follow some form of Christianity. So it's the #1 religion in the world as far as followers. Islam is #2. And just to put some context on Islam, Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world. Estimates have it somewhere around maybe 2070. Islam will be the #1 religion in the world as far as followers. And then sitting at #3 is Hinduism. Many of you guessed it. That is the oldest major religion in the world. But before we talk about it, I just want to put some context in. All right? All religions about context. If you look at civilization, I know what they're going to teach you in your Eurocentric schools and your Eurocentric curriculum. They're going to teach you about the Greeks and the Romans. But there were ancient civilizations before the Greeks and the Romans. All right? To give you one right off the top of my head, the Chinese are ancient civilization. Indians are ancient civilization. But before even the Chinese and Indian, what we have all agreed with scientists is that if you really want to find the oldest civilization, you have to go to the continent of Africa. So if we are to study the oldest religion, it makes logical sense. The first place we have to go is the continent of Africa. But unfortunately, we do not do that in our schools. And so, and a lot of the religions in Africa, as well as in China, and even in India, were not written down. So a lot of it was lost and destroyed. So when we say the oldest major religion, our best estimates now bring us to the Indus civilization. And those are really the Indian people, Palestinians, Indians. And that Indus civilization people is where we can track religion's first origins, all right? Organized religion. And it is estimated somewhere between 4,000, some go as old as 8,000 BCE. So somewhere between 4,000 and 8,000 BCE, we have estimates of when Hinduism begins. All right. It comes from Sanama, which is an old religious ideology. All right. And many of their practices formulate from Sanama into what we now call Hinduism. So Hinduism is a more recent terminology, but the practices are way more ancient than the word. So that's what I want you to think about context. And to give you context, if we're talking about 8,000 BCE, Judaism somewhere around 2,000 BCE. So we're talking about roughly 6,000 years older. That's how old Hinduism is. Hinduism is so old, we don't even know the founder. You know, with Judaism, we could say Abraham. Christianity, we could say Jesus. Islam, we could say Muhammad. We don't even have a founder for Hinduism. That's how old and ancient the religion. So if you are a religious person, it would actually be advantageous for you to learn about the oldest religion out there, because I'm pretty sure after you learn some of it, you'll see some of the ways that the religion you're practicing today either borrowed or stole many of the ideologies and the philosophies of the oldest religion in the world. All right. So first thing I'm going to tell you right now, I know most of you come from a Western paradigm, that means a Western perspective, you got to take that Western view of religion off. And we're going to take you now to the East. Now you're getting the Eastern perspective of God and religion. And that's very important because Eastern religion are open-minded. They do not box God into categories. They're very open-minded about religion and this concept of God. So that's the first thing. And to show you what I mean by that, Hinduism believes all of you are Hindus. You call yourself Muslim, you call yourself Jew, you call yourself Christian, you call yourself, I don't know, Confucius, that you follow Confucianism. But what I'm trying to tell you is that Hindus see all of you as Hindus. For a Hindu, God sends people for certain times. So God sent Muhammad for a certain time. God sent Jesus for a certain time. But ultimately, they all work for God. And so they don't see this divisiveness that we see with Western religions. You have to believe in my way, and if you don't believe in my way, you're going to hell, and it's only one way to God, it's only this way. They don't believe in that at all. Eastern religions more so say, Christianity, you guys are singing soprano. Islam, you guys are singing alto. Buddhists, you guys are singing tenor. What else do we want to? Taoist, you guys are singing bass. And when you guys all sing together, instead of fighting which one gets the solo, which one's right and which one's wrong, and sing together, it makes a glorious sound to God. That's the way you want to think of Hinduism. It's a very comprehensive view. The other thing that Hinduism does, this whole idea that we have of God is totally different from a Hindu perspective. They believe God is more like the original thought, the original consciousness. You know how we say what comes first, the chicken or the egg? That's the kind of way you want to think. God is more of a philosophical idea. Before the first thought, that was God, right? So God is more consciousness and not a being in the sky somewhere. God is the original thought. And so the way I want you to think of God in Hinduism is that God is a sea of consciousness. Just think of an ocean, but just think of an ocean of thoughts, right? And God is the original sea of consciousness. And what God then did was take a drop of God and deposited it in every single one of us. And our goal in life is to live the best life we can so we could reunite that original drop of God that's buried within us back to the sea of consciousness where it comes from. So the drop of God that's in you, its goal is to reunite back to its original source, which is the sea of consciousness, which we will call God. See what I mean by it's a different way of thinking about God? The other thing about it is you can't really box Hinduism. There are no rules. No one can tell you, oh, stop doing that. That's not what a Hindu. No one can make you a Hindu. Hindu is between you and God. It's when you pray and meditate and you penetrate inwards, you will find that drop of God that was deposited into your soul. And once you find that, then it will change your life and you will begin to try to find the source of where it comes from. And that's what this is. So there's no going to church or synagogue or temple. You go when you want to. The way Hindus go to temple is like this. Think of your life like a car. You're driving through life. And as you drive through life, you start running out of gas. It's when you run out of gas, you go to the gas station. Do you go to the gas station every day? No. It's after you live this life and you run out of gas, you then go to the temple to recharge. And then once you recharge, you go back out into the world. And that's how Hindus view the temple. So this idea of going to church or a synagogue or a temple every week or 3 times, 4 times a week is very new in religion. You only went to the temple when you needed to be refueled. And so that's what I mean by they're very different in how they view how to live this life. And so some always ask me, is Hindus monotheistic or polytheistic? Meaning, do they believe in one God or do they believe in multiple gods? It's both. They believe that God is one, but God manifests God's self in millions of ways. Some estimates have Hinduism having 330 million gods, but those millions of gods all work in one. So the way I teach my students this is this. Think of God like the Transformers. God is just one, what is that, robot? But then God can break up into multiple ways. Remember how the Transformers used to just break up? But then it comes all back together to the one. So that's why I say in Hinduism, God is monotheistic. But God can also be 330. So depending on what you need, there is a God for that. So you know how we have an app for everything? There's a God for everything. So if you need good luck, there's a God of good fortune. If you need money, there's a God of finance. If you need health, there's a God for health. If you want to get married, there's a God to find a spouse. If you want to have a child, there's a God to pray to for that. That's how, but I don't want you to think they're all different gods. They're just different ways to pray to God. But then ultimately they all work together. So I hope I didn't lose some of you, but that's how crazy this religion, that's how open-minded they are. And the way Hindus say is this, is there one way to eat? Is there one way to dress? Is there one way to dance? So why do we think there's only one way to worship God? And so that's their question to other religious people when religious people say, no, there's only one way to God and it's my way. And they're saying the same way you have different ways to eat, dance, wear clothes, culture, different kind of music. What makes your music better than our music? It's your way of dancing. But when you say you could only dance my way or only eat my food, and that's the only way you could get to God, a Hindu says you're sadly mistaken. God is bigger than you and bigger than your religion. So what they're basically saying is that there's multiple ways to get to God. Find your path and get there. So they're more concerned of you getting to God, not the path you take to get there. And the way I teach my students is this. For Hindus, all they care about is get to the house of God. Some of you are going to walk there. Some of you are going to drive there. Some of you are going to catch a train. Some of you are going to catch a plane. You guys are all fighting which way is the right way to get there. So if I'm a Christian, I'm saying you have to fly. If I'm a Muslim, I'm saying, no, you have to drive. If I'm a Buddhist, I'm saying, no, you have to walk. And Hindus are just like, bruh, just get there. And if flying gets you there, I'm okay with that. And if walking gets you there, I'm okay with that. But the goal is, are you getting to the house of God? And so that's the way you want to think of Hinduism. All right. So it's for them, they feel like all religion, if done right, will get you to the house of God and reunite you with Brahman. All right. So that's what, and the three gods that you're going to hear the most about with Hinduism are the three most popular gods. Brahman, which is the creator god. Vishnu, which is the preserver god. And Shiva, that is the destroyer god. And in Hinduism, what they believe is constantly happening, God is creating, preserving, and destroying all the time. That's what the universe is doing all the time. So civilization will always start, preserve, and destroy. Start, preserve, and what you believe in Hinduism, that there is no beginning or end. The universe has no beginning and end. It's just a cycle of start, preserve, destroy. Start. In the same way the universe has no beginning and end. Same way life has no beginning, no end. Same way you don't have a beginning and end. All of you have something called a jiva, which is a soul. And what they're trying to tell you, your soul never dies. And What they're saying, which is a new concept for many of you, is that your soul is like your words. You can't kill words. Words live forever. That's why Martin Luther King was assassinated in 1968, but yet he still lives because of his words. You can't kill. That's why when you say something wrong to someone, you apologize. But you know, apology is not really canceling what you said. It still lives what you said. So you know, Scripture in Christianity says the power of life is in the power of the tongue, right? Life and death is in the power of the tongue, because that's how powerful words are. And so for Hindus, words are the only expression of really what's really truly eternal, which is your soul. And so what happens is our physical body is like a car. And just like your car, as your car gets older, it breaks down. You take it to the mechanic, or you take your body to the hospital and they try to fix it. But eventually your car is going to break down and cannot go no more and die. That doesn't mean everything dies. Like the engine probably is still good. All we do now is take the engine, which is your soul, and put it in another car, and it keeps going. And so your jiva never dies. All you do is your physical car, your physical body, when it gets old or it gets into an accident, it dies. Your jiva gets up and goes into another soul. All right. And to the preview to this video, I told you something about what you call deja vu. But for Hindus, it's not deja vu. All of us live previous lives. All right. And what happens with deja vu, you're getting a glimpse of your previous life. That's why I can take one of you right now to China with me. And I can show you your passport that you've never been to China. I can show you physically you've never been to China. But I take you to a diner in China, and the waitress says, "Hey, can I get your order?" And you'll turn to me and be like, "Why does this feel so like I've been here before?" And I'll tell you, no, you haven't. I can show you this is your first time in China. But you're like, no, I've been here before. And a Hindu will tell you, because you have. Your soul, some people are on their 8th life or 20th life or 1,000th life. You ever seen a little kid, but the little kid just, their mannerisms act like they've been here before? We call them grown. A Hindu will tell you, no, they have an old soul. Or maybe sometimes you see grandpa, and you know grandpa's about 70, but he still acts like he's 7 or 8. Grandpa might have a young soul. So your soul, depending on how many life cycles it had, you can have a very old soul or a young soul. And so all the things that we talk about today, I'm just trying to give you the roots of where it comes from. It comes from Hinduism. So Hinduism is that belief that tells you that your soul lives forever. Until it reunites with God, it will not keep reincarnating. So your goal in life is to live the best life you can, so you can reincarnate higher and higher and higher. And once you reach the level of Brahmin, which is the highest level to live in this life, you then escape this life of dying, reincarnating, dying, which is called samsara. You escape samsara and you reunite with the one God. And that's really what this is all about. Thing that most of my students love about this religion, there is no hell. All right? None of you will perish. Everyone will ultimately get to God. The only difference is some of you will do it much faster. Some of you will take a long time to do it. So some of you, maybe in 3 lifetimes, will get back to God. But some of you, it's going to probably take 1,000 lifetimes, because you're not learning the lessons of life. And so to make this a little more contextual for you, when you look at your life and you look at the pains of your life, what it really is saying is that you're learning a lesson from your previous life. So let me give you a quick example. Say you were a very selfish person, never gave to the poor, never helped people. When you die and reincarnate, God's going to put you in a position maybe of poverty so you could understand people who don't have. Maybe you are a racist person, a white racist person. When you reincarnate, you will reincarnate African American. So everything that you have right now or you see right now is a result of the karma from your previous life. So there is no such thing in Hinduism as feeling sorry for people or saying, "Oh my God, everyone has what you deserve." So you know this idea that we have today called everything happens for a reason. That comes from Hinduism. So that's what I mean by we borrow concepts. Everything happens for a reason comes from Hinduism, saying that nothing that occurs to you in this life is luck. Everything that happened to you is something you're supposed to have learned that you didn't learn in your previous life. So when you think about that, that's really the crux of what Hinduism is all about. All right. So we're talking about permanent. We're talking about how do you get your soul right. Now we're going to talk about what are the four things that Hinduism is trying to teach you. They believe everyone is trying to learn. Everyone goes through four cycles in life. Everyone. And we're almost done. I just want to finish this last part of it. Everybody wants four things in life: pleasure, worldly success, religion of duty, and liberation. Those are four things. You look at anyone in life, in society, they're in one of these four stages. Pleasure. Everybody wants to like party, have a lot of sex, drink, do drugs. That's pleasure. You're trying to fulfill the pleasure of your flesh. That's pleasure. Some people are looking for likes, money, status, power. You're looking for worldly success. So start thinking about the people you live around and people that you know. You'll start being able to see everyone in the stages. Then there are some people that are all about service, giving to others. These are mostly your religious people. How do I help the community? How do I help people? Those are your service or religion of duty people. And then the last people are liberation. These people are more about how do I leave a legacy and make sure that my living here was not in vain. All right. And so what Hindus do that is so different than any religion I've studied, they don't try to make you act right. They actually push you to live a crazy life. What Hindus believe is that let them do everything that they wanted to do in this life. Let them smoke, drink, party, fornicate, adultery, I don't know, whatever you want to do. But they believe there's going to be a day where that won't make you satisfied no more. And you're going to eventually come back to Brahman. So unlike most religions that's trying to get you to quote unquote control your flesh and do that, Hindus are like, go have pleasure, go have worldly success. They believe ultimately you're going to come back to the last two that I talked about. You're going to come back to the religion of duty, and you're going to come back to liberation. And so have you seen it that people, maybe artists or millionaires, have it all and yet are not happy? And you're like, they got everything that you could want. That's what Hindus believe in. They believe that you're going to realize those things that you call pleasure is not fulfilling. And you're eventually going to not want to do that no more. You're thinking, oh, pleasure, I just want to have like a bunch of girls and millions of dollars. Okay, go get it. And then when you get it, you're going to realize, man, that's why when you get a new car, you go crazy. Oh my God, you take pictures, you post it. Give them 2 years. Are they posting pictures of the new car no more? Are they still not eating or drinking in the car no more? Or do now they act like the car is nothing? That's what Hindus believe, that no matter what you love in this world, one day it will come back and eventually you're going to realize what life is all about. So it's a religion that actually pushes you to pursue your pleasures because they believe that you will eventually come back like the prodigal son. All right. Same thing with worldly success. We've seen so many people in the top of the world. They're going to realize it's nothing. And you see people with everything. They'll give it all away just to be. The guy that I can think of right now is Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey had everything. He was a millionaire actor. He gave up that whole lifestyle, and now all he does is try to help people find themselves. That's a Hindu concept because Hindus believe you're going to eventually reach a point, you're going to believe that there's more to life than this, and you're going to want to find God because of that drop of God that's in you. And so everyone's going to go through that process. All right. And they teach that human beings are wired 4 ways. Some of you love knowledge. That's probably why you're even listening to this video. Some of you love emotion. Some of you love work. And some of you love meditation. The other new concept with Hinduism, they believe that there's 4 paths to God. All right. Not how to get to God. I'm not talking about religious. I'm talking about all of us are wired 4 ways. There's a lot of 4s in Hinduism. And you have to find the way that you're wired so you can find your way to God. So some of you are all about knowledge. And so you're the one that's always asking questions in Sunday school or always asking your Iman questions like, I want to understand. You're a knowledge person. I think I'm a knowledge person, all right? So I'm a person that give me the details, give me the context, give me the history. Let me really understand it. So they're saying these people are wired through knowledge. So your way to God is through knowledge. So you have to find a temple or a path that is wired with knowledge so you can get to God. Some of you are wired with emotion. So your way of showing your love for God or the way you like God is through saying, God, I love you, and praise and worship. So you're more of the emotional way to God. Some of you are wired through work. These are people that do mission trips and go to different parts of the world to spread the knowledge of God. So your way to God, your path to God is through working with your hands and doing work in the community. And the last person, there's people whose way to God is through meditation and penetrating inward and trying to find the deep revelations of God through deep, deep meditation. We really weren't taught this 4th way to God. Most of your religious institutions focus really on the first 3. No one really taught the 4th one. And the religion that comes after this is called Buddhism. Buddhism really focuses on this last way to God, the meditation form. So most Buddhists are the meditation way to God. And what you do is you really get your mind to be disciplined so it can really hear from God. There are people in this world that can concentrate on one thing for hours. Imagine I told you to take this pen, don't think of nothing else but this pen for 2 hours. How many of you can do it? I don't think many of you can. But there are Buddhists and Hindus out there that can meditate on just this pen for 10 hours straight. And what I mean by meditate, that means to get your mind to sit still and don't think of nothing else. Right now, while you're watching this video, you're thinking about what we're going to eat for lunch. I wonder what's going on tonight. I wonder what they posted on Instagram. You're not even focused on this, what we're talking about right now. That's how undisciplined the mind is. So your job in life as a Hindu is to get your mind to be disciplined and to think on one thing. And when you do, you can tap into another level of God and really understand the mysteries of God. And so meditation is your 4th thing. All right. So there's 4 paths to understanding God. There's 4 stages that you go through in life, which we talked about. And the last thing I want to talk about is life at the end is a test. Everything, remember I told you, everything that you're dealing with in life, you are given is a test to see if you will pass. If you pass, you reincarnate to the next level. If you don't pass, you reincarnate lower. So reincarnation happens both positively and negatively. You can reincarnate higher. The higher you go, the closer you get to God. And I believe the stages are Vaishas, which is like the third stage, Kaistras, which is the second, Brahmins is the top. Once you pass the Brahmin test, you then are released out of this cycle of life and you reunite back with God. All right? But if you don't do that, you keep going lower. And you can go as low as an animal. You can go as low as a plant. So for Hindus, everything has a soul. So that roach that's walking in your house, yeah, that could be grandma. So you shouldn't be stepping on it and just killing it like that. Maybe you shoot it out the door. But that's the way they think. They think that everything has a soul. So you don't know if you're killing your ancestor or your uncle. So everything that has life you respect because you don't know if it's a reincarnation that comes lower or higher. So that's why they find animals, most of them that follow the strict form of Hinduism are vegetarians. Um, they believe the cow is sacred because of the milk that it produces. They tend not to eat meat because of this idea that there's life in everything. All right. So I tried to give you a basic. Hinduism really is about a 6-hour class. I tried to give you 30 minutes of the key components so you can understand the basic foundations of Hinduism. So your job in life is to pass this test. Your soul lives forever, and depending on what you do in this world, you will reincarnate either higher or lower. And that's in the nutshell of Hinduism. If you have any questions next week, I'll be looking to answer. Have a great